Cheap, cheap, cheap. Cheap, cheap, cheap.
Well, that's a little bit too harsh, and yet at the same time too complimentary. Defend. Attack. The simplicity. The perfect kind of gameplay to be sped up by this high-tempo track. Lovely TV game organ, and the gameplay can get surprisingly tense at moments. Press the attack button at the right moment to perform a combo and attack faster, thus increasing the amount of attacks you can fit in before they attack you, ideally defeating them before they can even touch you. When you've done that enough, level up and improve a stat. Stronger attacks, quicker attacks, more HP, more magic in reserve, depending on your preference and strategy. Get new gear that benefits you in different ways. Sometimes get stuff that's a burden, or at the very least a trade-off. Some equipment are references to pop culture, yet they don't seem to detract from the serious tone. As unlikely as that may sound, considering you can get the Green Lantern ring, go up or down, climb or delve, depending on the level. You'll run into an enemy or have to make a decision. Repeat until you reach the boss. They usually require exploiting a specific weakness and then battering them. I mean, this thing lives in a fluid, maybe it's a fish and not a snake. Usually it's a different approach for each boss, and the same goes for the regular enemies, just to a lesser extent. So essentially the gameplay is made up of reflexes and memory. Remember their pattern of attack, and use your reflexes and ability to remain calm under pressure to chain combos and defend against their attacks, until they're dead. As you complete more levels, you can buy more skills, to make the journey easier. And there are 3 different characters to choose from with different attributes. Don't worry, character level resets at the start of each stage, so you won't be diluting gained experience while trying out different characters for a while. Just maybe gold for purchasing skills though. One of the characters specializes in magic. Try magicking everything, or maybe just building up your magic reserves to use equipment that requires magical energy to function. This game is a fun and compact thing. That description I just gave is essentially the extent of what you do. Plus it's always fun to see a blob disrobe. There are secrets for each level, but I had to look online to find most of them. They are well hidden, and usually that requires you going to a completely different level to get an item that spawns fairly rarely, and then use that item on the original level on a specific floor. Bearing in mind that for that extent of time, one of your item slots will be occupied by this item, and that may not be ideal for certain levels. And there's very little guidance given to you in solving the secrets. Sure, they tell you the level's a secret and whether or not you found it, but other than that, you accidentally find the item you need and then go, that's a weird item. Maybe I can use it elsewhere? And you're not gonna lug that thing all over the place. Well, most of you aren't. So maybe you'll just stow it away, or maybe substitute it for a completely different item on the level, losing the opportunity for quite some time. And doing all of that works towards rewards that are nice, but aren't necessary to complete the game. But it's quite nice when you get them accidentally. A few of the secrets actually are quite easy to find. For instance, the one that triggers when you complete a specific level quickly, something you will eventually achieve if you replay the levels. Story-wise, it's a very functional dark fantasy kind of thing. Magical and stuff. Witches, cultists, monsters. It's not much, but when you combine it with its design aesthetic, as well as dark atmosphere, it does deliver moments that makes it feel like you're playing some sort of pixel art Conan the Barbarian game. It's surprisingly atmospheric, and as mentioned, serious in tone. I mean, just listen to this tune. The game is a short burst of fun that took me about 8 hours to complete, and that's with me replaying a lot of levels to earn quest rewards, plus some mild searching for secrets, so your time may be even shorter. The game is cheap on Steam, 55 Rand full price, 13 Rand 75 on sale. That's 1 Rand 72 per hour of gameplay, which is quite splendid. And it has a ridiculously small download size, as it only takes up 71 megabytes on the hard drive. Excellent. and it works on the warhorse. Maybe it's okay for kids. It has pixel blood and it's quite dark, but pixely. A really heavy pixel art style. So some kids, a lot of kids probably, will be fine with it. The darkness is more stylistic than depressing anyway. The game is brilliantly simple, and it does have a decent pixel art style and visuals. And the part it plays in the dark atmosphere strengthens the game. That very nice dark fantasy atmosphere that kind of reminds me of Conan the Barbarian or your more Dark Ages fantasy, stemming from its dark setting, story, music, etc. But I suppose that's not for everyone. The game has good fun gameplay. Although stay away if you don't like quick-time events or clickers, because essentially that's what the gameplay is at the end of the day, in entirety almost. And it has a big variety of enemies to encounter and patterns to learn. And on the maybe side, the game has a functional story, kind of cliché, and it's a very simple and singular thing. But some people will consider this a con. I find it's a pro when you consider the short length of the game. On the con side, the only real con this game has is that the secrets are really hard to find and activate for not very much in return. This game is rather a delight. It's fun, tight, compact, simple, cheap, small download, easy to run. It's maybe not groundbreaking, but it stuffs a lot of value into the bag. Come on, play it. Plays the thief who totally isn't a humanoid rat. This is a very bad tavern. It has needlessly high ceilings, no decor, moss is growing everywhere, and they only seem to serve beer and apples. At least they got a bathroom. Welcome to the dungeon. That's it. It's a dungeon. It has a treasure at the bottom. Go get it. No story, no narrative, just get that thing. I'm not even sure what it is. The achievement pictures seem to indicate it's some sort of diamond, but a more Sims diamond. Full disclosure, I have not completed this game. I believe I haven't even come close. It's too hard for too little game. And I'm not alone in this. Just take a look at the Steam stats. Less than 1% of all players actually found the treasure. I mean, the dungeon is a labyrinth and you fight the monsters with a rigid, difficult combat system. Ew. 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 This sword has no reach. You can get different weapons though. And while some of them have a longer reach, it's still not enough. And they don't swipe in a three-dimensional arc. There are also ranged weaponry, such as guns and magic, but they can be very finicky and difficult to aim. But using these weapons with strategy, while having apples to heal yourself, a nice hat for protection, maybe gambling with a potion or two you found on the floor, you can get enough experience orbs to level up a couple times, and descend to lower, more difficult levels. Sure, maybe you had to deal with a tough challenge or two, lose that gamble with the potion, but ultimately manageable. But then you reach level 7 and get killed by an army of gnomes. It's not always gnomes that get you, but usually around level 7 that's when things get very hard. Strong enemies start to appear, or weak ones, in ridiculously large numbers. I had no idea snakes were pack hunters. Numbers that perhaps are too difficult to deal with. Hordes are perhaps the most dangerous threat you will find in this game. That short reach does even less against multiple enemies. And as far as I can tell, the only thing that does area damage is fire. Difficult to aim and work with, but in all fairness, they do burn when they run through it. But they rush you and bring it with them, setting you on fire. This sounds miserable, you might be saying. Well, don't be so hasty. Your death can be very funny. At the very least, when you die, you pop open like the worst kind of piñata, one with healthy snacks inside. Plus, there's same-screen co-op capability. And it is controller flexible. So at the very least, this game is good for a bit of bonding over getting mobbed. Visually, it's stunning. 2D pixel art sprites for you and the enemy, and those sprites are contained in a 3D area shown from the side. Almost like a diorama with really lush, glowy lights. And very pronounced dark. The only real visual issue is all that white brick. But maybe it changes later on. I haven't reached that low a level. I think floor 9 was my best attempt, but it seems the change there is instead of white it's purple brick. The game has a very odd personality, mainly relayed through the selection of hats, as well as the more funny enemies. I once was killed by kitten wraiths. Also, it's procedurally generated, and how the switches function can sometimes be hard to pin down. Sometimes multiple switches seem to do the same thing, and sometimes a switch can seemingly do nothing, at the very least in the same room. I played this game as a sort of in-between game, and up to now I played for around 7 hours in total. I played a little bit of co-op, but honestly most of you will find it a stretch to even play that long. It doesn't really capture your attention for long periods of time. Maybe if you're busy with a really good run, but otherwise you die and feel deflated. And it doesn't seem to have any roguelike elements to help the situation really. But the game technically is cheap on Steam. 79 Rand full price, 39 Rand 50 on sale. That's 5 Rand 65 per hour of gameplay, which isn't great. It's okay, but not the best value for money. And I get the feeling that this is one of those situations where the dollar and pound per hour blade ratio deviate enough from Rand that in those currencies it may be downright bad. And remember, that's when using my in-between game hour total. I really doubt I could have played that long concurrently. I stopped pretty early, and I believe that most of you will lean towards playing it less than I did. At least on the hard drive it doesn't really take up much space, 502 megabytes, so it's not a difficult download. And it does work on the Warhorse fairly well. So there's another pretty thing that can work on older equipment at the very least. Stereotypically it's okay for kids, I guess. It has violence, but it's pixel art. Not that much detail. There are blood spatters. And pronounced darkness. But I guess a lot of kids can handle it. And as mentioned, the game does have same screen co-op capability, and it's controller flexible. The game is visually stunning, even if the decor does wear thin. And it has a unique, weird personality relayed through hats, enemies, and weapons. Kind of strange though, considering how ominous the music is. I don't really mention the music in this review, because it doesn't really play much. On the maybe side, the game has no story, and not everyone will be as enthralled by the personality as I was. Not everyone likes a hodgepodge. And on the con side, your reach in combat is very small. There's no 3D arc to your swing, and combat is difficult. Your progress is often halted by a wave of difficulty, almost as though the developer doesn't want you to complete the game. Conspiracy. And leveling up isn't really much of a defense against this difficulty. Quite difficult for a little reward. And it also has kind of a clunky interface as well. It doesn't take up much of the screen, that I do appreciate, but unless you drop everything you're pretty sure you're not gonna use, you're going to have to scroll through a lot of stuff. And since I was playing sporadically, every time I had to look up what these numbers actually mean in the how to play section. So this game is kind of a decadent suggestion. Short, artsy, more of a curiosity. Perhaps better suited to co-op laughs. If you have the money to try something weird, go ahead. Enable the developer's obsession with cats.
Cheap.